SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
At Community Bank, we're more than a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors and trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've helped families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. We're dedicated to your success every step of the way. Community Bank, member FDIC.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man.
Good Monday morning. Welcome to the start of a new week. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. I appreciate you being with us alongside Lance Tolbert. I am Richard Cross, the show brought to you every day by Community Bank. Hope you had a great weekend. The weather was pretty spectacular across the state of Mississippi. Maybe a touch warm, but we can live with that in the low 80s. And these mornings and these evenings in the 50s. Oh, man. Lance.
Can't complain.
I built a fire twice this weekend.
Yeah, you had one like Friday, if I remember, Thursday night.
Had one Thursday night and one Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it was, the outdoor fire doesn't really do that much in terms of heat. It's ambiance as much as anything else. But it's not just a little bit of chill out of the air.
Well, it marks the kickoff.
Perfect. Yes.
It's just the kickoff of true fall, winter coming. I mean, you just got to crank it up and get it ready to go. Get all the chimney sweeps out of the chimney. So it looked amazing, though, as I told you Thursday night. I was very
great.
envious. I have a fire pit outside. Haven't yet crunk it up. I'm getting ready. Got the wood stacked and kind of put it in a new position this year after redoing the yard, and been staring at it, and I'm a little as the yard is filling in. I don't want to turn on the heat just yet and stomp it down too much. So I can't wait though, because the weather has been legit for a little fire pit, sit out, watch a game at night, may even do it tonight.
There you go. We're closer to fall. Finally got to that spot where you take a look at the long-range forecast and you see some consistent highs in the 70s. But we're going to have to get through this week first. Abbeville, today you've got mainly sunny skies with a high of 84 and winds out of the northeast at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Hollandale, mainly sunny, high of 88, winds out of the northeast, 5 to 10. Our friends in Bovina got mainly sunny skies today with a high of 87, light and variable winds. And then Van Cleve, going to be mainly sunny for you today as well with a high of 87. Just a breeze, just a light breeze throughout the day, going to be kind of coming from all the different directions.
Well, if you're ever in Bovina and you're hungry, they've got a little diner there. I call it the Bovina Diner, but it is called, I think it's the real name's the Bovina Cafe.
The Bovina Diner.
I call it the Bovina Diner. Yeah, it is delish, man.
Okay.
So if you're ever cruising through, they're not open like at dinner time. So it's a breakfast lunch place.
All right.
Right off the highway. Excellent spot.
Good to know. We got a great show for you this morning. At 7 o'clock, we'll be joined by Bradley Roberson. He is the superintendent of the Oxford School District. Wrote an op-ed that you can read here on SuperTalk Mississippi last week about why he believes public schools in the iteration that they exist right now are the best way forward for the state of Mississippi. The Oxford School Board a few weeks ago put out a resolution in which it outlined the reasons it was against some of the school choice models that are being discussed. So we'll get into the school choice conversation with Bradley Roberson coming up to start the 7 o'clock hour. Department of Safety, Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tindell will be by to start the 8 o'clock hour as well. A really, really bad weekend in the state of Mississippi. and we'll get into that with him. And then at 8:37, JT Mitchell, a news-heavy weekend. JT will be by to chat with us as well. Some birthdays that happened on this day. Today is the 13th of October, a Monday the 13th, not a Friday the 13th. When Friday the 13th is in October, it feels like you've got to give that its due respect. But
that's a little
when it's
witchy.
Monday the 13th, yeah. 1537. This is a weird one. Jane Grey was born in 1537. She was the Queen of England in 1553 for 9 days. Why only 9 days, you might ask? Well, that's what I asked myself last night, so I did a little bit of digging. In June, the dying Edward VI wrote his will nominating Jane and her male heirs as successors to the crown, in part because of his half-sister Mary, who was Catholic, whereas Jane was a committed Protestant and would support the Reformed Church of England, whose foundation Edward had laid. So it was a religious deal. But none of the players acted very religious in the days going forward. After Edward's death, Jane was proclaimed queen on July 10th, 1553, and awaited her coronation in the Tower of London. Support for Mary, though, grew rapidly, and most of Jane's supporters abandoned her. The Privy Council suddenly changed sides and proclaimed Mary queen on the 19th of July, 9 days after Jane had been proclaimed queen. And so they deposed Jane. Her primary supporter, her father-in-law, the Duke of Northumberland, was accused of treason and executed less than a month later. Jane was held prisoner in the Tower, and in November of 1553, she was convicted of treason, which carried a sentence of death. So Mary, who became queen, initially spared her life, but Jane soon became viewed as a threat to the crown when her father, Henry Grey, the first Duke of Suffolk, became involved with Wyatt's rebellion against Mary's intention to marry Philip of Spain. And then Jane and her husband were executed. She was beheaded on the 12th of February in 1554. At the time of her execution, she was believed to be either 16 or 17 years old. They were crazy, Lance.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Sticking with British history, Margaret Thatcher was born on this day in 1925.
The Iron Lady.
Mm-hmm. Prime Minister of Great Britain from 1979 until 1990. Paul Simon was born on this day in 1941, the American multi-Grammy award-winning singer and songwriter, part of Simon and Garfunkel. He was the soloist in The Sound of Silence. Kodachrome, still crazy after all these years. My favorite Paul Simon song, Graceland. And he was an actor as well, born in Newark, New Jersey. Jamal Khashoggi was born on this day in 1958, the Saudi Arabian progressive journalist, author, and editor-in-chief of Al Arab News Channel. You probably remember that name. He was brutally murdered in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, born in Medina, Saudi Arabia. Jerry Rice is 63 years old today, born in 1962. American pro and college football Hall of Fame wide receiver. 13-time Pro Bowler with the San Francisco 49ers, born in Starkville. Nancy Kerrigan was born in 1969, the Olympic bronze medalist in 1992 and silver medalist in 1994. Of course, she was the victim in the infamous assault. Tanya Harding, Joey Buttafuoco.
Yeah, that was the movie Tanya is actually a pretty good, look back into it. Well done. I think it's on Hulu. Yeah. It's solid.
Sacha Baron Cohen, born on this day in 1971, the British comedian and actor. Ali G, Borat.
The Dictator's the best as far as his movie, I think, that he's done. Solo. Oh, man, that's genius.
There's some comedic genius in Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
An AOC born on this day in 1989. She's just 36 years old, representative from New York. Couple of things that happened historically in the year 54. Not 1954 or 1554, but 54. Agrippina the Younger murders her husband, the Roman Emperor Claudius, with poison so as to secure the line of succession for her son, Nero.
They were ruthless, man.
1269, the new Gothic-style Westminster Abbey, consecrated by Henry III after the bones of Edward the Confessor are transferred to it. Took a while to build it. Construction began in 1220. You just think your construction project's taking a long time. 1966, the Jimi Hendrix Experience rock trio debuts with American guitarist Jimi Hendrix, British bassist Noel Redding, and British drummer Mitch Mitchell in Normandy. And finally, just a year ago today, SpaceX completes the first recovery of a rocket as its Starship rocket booster is caught by a giant pair of mechanical arms coming in from a test flight. Those are your headlines.
From the MRC Mornings with Richard Cross.
Let's get on with the show.
Check it out. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Sun beat down at my radio on. I was driving, trees and pine, and I was singing Little Runaway. I was flying,
Monday morning, good morning. Thank you for being with us. If you want to join the conversation, you may do so on the C Spire text line. The number is 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. C Spire, inspired by you. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. It's time for your news headlines on this Monday morning. The FBI is asking for the public's help in identifying a group of subjects potentially linked to a shooting in Leland that left 6 dead and at least 10 others injured. Gunfire erupted at the intersection of 4th Street and North Main Street around midnight on Friday when a large crowd was gathered for a block party following the homecoming football game at Leland High School. The FBI Jackson Field office stated in a Sunday night press release that the incident appears to have been, quote, sparked by a disagreement among several individuals, close quote. The deceased were identified on Saturday as Orishama Johnson, 41, Calvin Plant, 19, Shelbyona Powell, 25, Caslin Johnson, 18, Amos Brantley Jr., 18, and Jamichael Jones, 34. In an effort to locate the subjects and anyone else potentially involved in the shooting, the FBI has established a media tips website. You can find that on our website, supertalk.fm. To collect multimedia video or any other photos from the public, other tips can be submitted by calling 800-225-5324. All tips can be submitted anonymously. But the shooting in Leland was one of several, albeit unrelated shootings that made for a deadly weekend across Mississippi. Another shooting happened Friday night on the campus of Heidelberg High School during the school's homecoming game, and resulted in 2 people, including an expectant mother, dying. Tyler Gerard Goodlow, 18, was taken into custody and had multiple charges, including 2 counts of capital murder filed against him. His bond was set at just over $2 million. A third shooting on Friday night occurred at South Delta High School's football game in Rolling Fork. One victim was injured, but is now in stable condition. 2 suspects, Justin Pam and Michael Miles Jr., are in custody. That was all on Friday night. On Saturday night, more gunfire boomed, this time on the campus of Alcorn State in Lorman. When campus police officers responded to the scene inside the Industrial Technology Building, 1 person was found dead, 2 others injured. The deceased has been identified as Rakira Fisher, 29 years old. No arrests had been made as of last night. A child is injured after being shot near Jackson State's football stadium on Saturday night. Hinds County Sheriff and Interim Jackson Police Chief Tyree Jones said the gunfire rang out around 7 p.m. near the tailgate section on West Street outside Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium. The Jackson State football team played Alabama State in homecoming, had about 44,000 there for the game, even more in town for all the homecoming festivities. Jones said the child was shot in the abdomen and transported by police to the nearby University of Mississippi Medical Center for treatment. No suspects arrested at this time. Both the Jackson Police Department and Capitol Police Department are investigating the incident, asking for any relevant information to be turned over to them immediately. Have mercy. I mean, Lance, what in the world?
I mean,
it all started about the time you wrapped up the scoreboard show on Friday night.
Yeah, none of that was going on. I mean, Heidelberg, we had covered the score, didn't have anything. I didn't see anything on Twitter, so it definitely must have been happening as it was winding down, and just crazy stuff, man. I mean, then the Leland issue, that was – I can't even put it into words, man. Yeah, I think just –
I love it. I love it. A disagreement between several people.
Yeah.
So let's have a shooting party.
Man, that's where we've gotten, I guess. You can't you're not ever going to solve anything that way, that's for sure, but it seems that's becoming all too common.
Mm-hmm. Israel said last night that it expected all living hostages held in Gaza to be released today in its breakthrough ceasefire deal with Hamas, as Palestinians awaited the release of hundreds of prisoners held in Israel. That was what everybody thought was going to happen yesterday, and guess what? It has. Hamas released all 20 of the last living hostages on Monday. The Israeli military said it is part of a breakthrough ceasefire after 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas in the devastated Gaza Strip. Probably should say the 2 most recent years of war, but anyway. Buses carrying dozens of freed Palestinian prisoners drove to the West Bank city of Ramallah and the Gaza Strip. The Hamas-run prisoners' office said Israel is freeing more than 1,900 prisoners as part of the ceasefire deal. President Donald Trump is in the region to discuss the U.S. proposed deal and post-war plans with other leaders. A surge of humanitarian aid expected to begin almost immediately, may have already, where hundreds of thousands of people have been left homeless, that humanitarian aid going into famine-stricken Gaza. While major questions remain about the future of Hamas and Gaza, the exchange of hostages and prisoners marked a key step toward ending the deadliest war ever between Israel and the militant group. Before Trump left for the region last night, he asserted to reporters the war is over, saying that he would be proud to visit Gaza. Israeli government spokesperson Shosh Bedrosian said all 20 living hostages were expected to be released at one time to the Red Cross, and they were going to be driven to a military base to reunite with their family or seek immediate medical attention. Israel was scheduled to release about 2,000 Palestinian detainees and receive the 28 hostages believed to be dead. Now the hard work begins. An international task force will start working to locate deceased hostages who are not returned within 72 hours. The UN late on Sunday night reported real progress on humanitarian aid in Gaza, saying it and its partners distributed hundreds of thousands of hot meals and bread. Cooking gas entered the territory for the first time since March during the previous ceasefire in the war. The UN and Israel has now approved 190,000 metric tons of aid to enter Gaza. They're going to be running about 600 trucks a day. Some interesting reporting has come out about this ceasefire deal, and you'll be shocked to know that Hamas didn't really want to agree with it. They didn't really want to sign off, and yet they did. And this is where the really, bigger picture, fascinating Donald Trump for the last 8 months comes into play. You remember he did the Middle East summit in, 3 or 4 months ago. It was an economic summit. The relationship with Qatar has been increased. The relationship with others in the Middle East has been increased significantly in terms of good. Apparently, it was many of these other Middle Eastern nations who are host countries for Hamas. I know, it's complicated. Who said to Hamas, you're going to sign the deal. And you're going to sign it now. Or we're going to start taking away things from you. And so Hamas got kind of strong-armed into this ceasefire agreement by other countries in the region that in the past have just kept their mouths shut. But Trump has built relationships economically for the most part and kind of helped stop some other wars over this last 8 months to the point where he was able to lean on some of those countries to get Hamas to stand down. I mean, what a tangled web that is.
8D chess.
In that part of the world. We're back with you after this. Mornings with Richard Cross.
From the state, got everything you need to know to start your day. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, supertalk.fm, and the SuperTalk Mississippi app. Now, here's more with Richard Cross.
There is a very, very real and significant irony. Not the Alanis Morissette kind, to what is happening right this moment. At 2:37 in the afternoon in Jerusalem, so about 8 hours ahead of us, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, whose enemies, opponents, and media pundits who oppose him have, for the better part of a decade now, referred to him as Hitler. As we speak, Donald Trump speaks at the Knesset in Israel. That's their parliament, their Congress. He received an extended, almost 2-minute standing ovation as he walked into the room. He is standing at the lectern behind a pair of microphones, speaking to the Knesset, and is getting round of applause after round of applause mixed with standing ovations. Hitler, you say? You're talking about the guy that killed millions of Jews. There is no American president in United States history that has been a bigger or better friend to Israel and to the Jewish people than Donald Trump. And wait, what about the other side? You fascist, Donald Trump, you fascist? Free Palestine, free Palestine. That's what he just did. That's what he just did. While being the greatest friend to Israel that an American president has ever been, he also has been the architect, at least through negotiation, of the framework of a peace deal between Israel and Hamas, creating not a globally recognized free state of Palestine, but an opportunity for the Palestinians to live free in Gaza in the future. Think about that for a second. You've had the pro-Israel groups, and you've had the pro-Palestinian groups, and they both just kind of got what they wanted. There was a little bit of compromise there. We get a question on the C Spire text line just a second ago, 601-879-4395. Before I read that, I'll read what Thomas said. He said, literally Hitler. How many times have you heard that? He is literally, which, oh, by the way, you don't understand the meaning of the word literally. He is literally Hitler. Mark says, what is your opinion on trading 20 Israeli hostages for 2,000 Palestinians? Some of the Palestinians are terrorists. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for the ceasefire. I'm sure the 20 hostages don't care, but that seems like an unfair trade. Appreciate your thoughts. Some of those were prisoners. Some of those were detainees. Yes, there are terrorists in the group. There's one in particular that that the Hamas is trying to make sure is released. It's the price of peace, Mark. Will it be a lasting peace? I mean, history tells us no, because for a couple of thousand years now, people have been trying to kill the Jews. And I don't think that mindset is going to go away. Is it an even trade? No. But Donald Trump said we're going to bring those hostages home. Period. And they got it done. Not everything is done, but they have brought the hostages home as promised. We're going to talk more about this in the later in the show today. Right now, though, it's time for your sports headlines brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Find them online at pearlriverresort.com. Pearl River Resort, home of the Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, 2 18-hole championship courses, the Oaks and the Azaleas. You can play them, book your tee time online at dancingrabbitgolf.com. Trinidad Chambliss threw for 2 touchdowns and ran for another score to lead number 4 Ole Miss over Washington State 24-21 on Saturday. Closer than most would have liked, closer than anyone expected. Ole Miss trailed 14-10 late in the third quarter before Chambliss scored on a 17-yard touchdown scramble. He threw a 35-yard touchdown pass to Caden Lee to make it a 24-14 lead with 6:51 to go. Lane Kiffin after the game said, "I just told our players that we did get to 1-0 today, and that's the most important thing. But that was about the only good thing. That performance was definitely not to our standard. We got up 2 scores and didn't finish it." Trinidad Chambliss finished the day 20 of 29 for 253 yards with 2 touchdowns and no scores, but his stat line doesn't really tell the story. Not very accurate, especially with deep balls in the game. Keywan Lacey was a dude. He did not score, but he had 24 carries for 142 yards and almost 6 yards per carry. Daquan Wright had 4 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. Caden Lee had the touchdown catch as well. Ole Miss up next will head to Athens to take on the Georgia Bulldogs this coming Saturday. The rest of the SEC from this past weekend, you had Texas A&M winning 34-17 over the Florida Gators to improve to 6-0 on the year, 3-0 in conference play. Texas got its first SEC win with a 23-6 victory over Oklahoma in Red River. Alabama went on the road to beat Missouri 27-24. The Tide has won 5 in a row since losing its season opener to Florida State. Alabama 3-0 in conference play. A highly controversial game in Auburn, Alabama, as the Georgia Bulldogs won 20-10 over Auburn. They trailed 10-0 in the game and then scored 20 unanswered. Georgia now 5-1 overall, 3-1 in league play. Auburn moves to 0-3 in the SEC. LSU a 20-10 winner over South Carolina. The Tigers are now 2-1 in the conference. And Tennessee had to hang on for dear life at the end, but the Vols won 34-31 over Arkansas. Arkansas falls to 0-2 in the league. Tennessee now 2-1 in the SEC, 5-1 overall. Their one loss in overtime to Georgia. Some surprising news yesterday. Penn State fired their head coach James Franklin after 12 seasons. They will pay him a little more than $49 million to go away. It's the second biggest buyout in college football history, behind only the $76 million that Texas A&M paid to Jimbo Fisher a few years ago. Associate head coach Terry Smith will serve as the interim head coach for the remainder of the season. You remember, Penn State was in the playoff a year ago. They actually won 2 games in the college football playoff, but after losing a heartbreaker 3 weeks ago to Oregon in overtime at home, Penn State has lost back-to-back games to UCLA and Northwestern. And they said they had had enough. Yesterday in the NFL, you had the Broncos over the Jets 13-11. Yuck. Colts beat the Cardinals 31-27. Chargers over the Dolphins 29-27. Patriots beat the Saints 25-19 in the Dome. Drake May had 3 touchdown passes in the game for New England. Steelers are now 4-1 after a 23-9 win over the Browns. Panthers beat the Cowboys 30-27. The Boys now 2 wins, 3 losses, and a tie. Seahawks 20-12 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Rams beat the Ravens 17-3. Raiders over the Titans 20-10. The Titans are now 1-5. Packers beat the Bengals. Bucks over the 49ers 30-19. And last night in Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs evened their record at 3-3 with a 30-17 win over the Detroit Lions. And finally, Major League Baseball playoffs are underway, or continue. The championship series, league championship series underway. Last night, Seattle, a 3-1 win over Toronto in Game 1 of the ALCS. They will play again this afternoon. First pitch at 4 o'clock Central Time. The Dodgers and the Brewers will begin the National League Championship Series tonight at 7 o'clock in Milwaukee. Those are your sports headlines brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Find them online at pearlriverresort.com. Got a lottery update coming up for you next.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Let's do it.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Time for your daily Mississippi Lottery update brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery. Find them online at mslottery.com. No jackpot winner on Saturday night for Powerball. The estimated jackpot for tonight's drawing is now $258 million with an estimated cash value of almost $121 million. The Saturday night numbers from the drawing: 13, 16, 18, 20, 27. The Powerball 10. The Power Play multiplier 2. Mega Millions is getting on up there. No jackpot winner in Friday night's drawing. The next drawing in Mega Millions is tomorrow night, Tuesday, October 14th. $600 million. The estimated jackpot with an estimated cash value of $277,200,000. From Friday night, the numbers were 3, 18, 23, 32, 56. The Mega Ball was 8. Estimated jackpot tonight for the Mississippi Match 5, $62,000. Last week, the Lottery Claims Office paid out $370,323.61, while retailers paid out close to $5 million, a little over $4.7 million. And we'll tell you about a winner. How about this one? Cash 4 winner. A Gulfport woman won $5,000 on a ticket from Circle K in Biloxi. Circle K store in Biloxi. That is your Mississippi Lottery update. For all that's happening with the lottery, visit their website, mslottery.com. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. This is Mornings with Richard Cross, brought to you by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. Whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business, we're here to help every step of the way. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC. Let's go to the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. CC in Senatobia says liberals actually align with Hitler. They're just too insane to see it.
Well, that and, National Socialism, it's basically socialism with nationalism, The Czechs actually invented it. Hitler used it, like he did many things, like the swastika, and which has been around for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. But yeah, every country in Europe which had communists and massive amounts of socialists that had flooded in were all trying to get rid of the Jews. Everybody. Germany's the one who welcomed them. So do your historical research. Every country in Europe, especially Western Europe, was trying to get rid of their Jewish population. And look at what their political affiliations were when they were doing that. But nobody really likes to do history anymore. We're too interested in social media and all that and whatever's out. The truth, though, actually is that exactly what he said is true. The left aligns with National Socialism. And who was the greatest leader of National Socialism of all time? Adolf Hitler.
History is complicated.
Well, you make it that way. It's my opinion. I have a degree in it, and it's never been very complicated to me when you read primary sources. When you get into the tertiaries and all that, and opinion, and who's writing what on what, and I think this and that, that's not history. That's opinion. That's commentary. That's editorialized history. The truth is in the primary sources, and it's there, and it can be found. It just takes a little effort. And you go into it without a bias. You go into it to learn, not to pick a side.
Don't always do a great job learning from history.
Yeah, that's what it's there for. When we fail to, study it and learn from the truth, actually what happened. As they say,
tends to repeat itself.
You're doomed to repeat it, right? You can't editorialize and make history what you want it to be. It is what it is. And you're supposed to learn from those mistakes and successes and try to carry forward.
Jim and Corinth on the C Spire text line, altogether different topic. How about the officiating in the Auburn-Georgia game on Saturday night?
Oof.
Yeah, the big controversial play was a tush-push, a 1-yard scoring plunge that Auburn was attempting when Georgia was able to punch the football out, cause a fumble. It's incredible how many people had a definitive reaction of exactly what happened on that play. Really hard to tell.
I couldn't tell, honestly.
Really hard to tell whether the ball broke the plane before. I thought the ball was moving before he broke the plane. The only real gaffe in that officiating, I mean, you can agree or disagree with whether or not it was a fumble. The only real gaffe, though, is that when Georgia recovered what ultimately was ruled a fumble, the play was blown dead. There should have been a touchdown on that play one way or the other, either for Auburn saying, no, it wasn't a fumble, he broke the plane, or for Georgia, who took it 99 yards the other way for a touchdown, but the play was blown dead, and so they instead started at their own 1-foot line. 7 o'clock hour coming up. Bradley Roberson, superintendent of the Oxford School District, will join us to start things off.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Since you're up early, you get the news first. Back to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and the SuperTalk app.
Monday morning, October 13th. Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. This hour of the show is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to MWGEmployerServices.com. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Happy to welcome in our first guest this morning. The superintendent of the Oxford School District, Bradley Roberson, joins us. Full disclosure, I have known Bradley for a really long time. He and I, years and years ago, umpired together, Park Commission baseball, did some tournaments, so we've known each other for a long time, and there is no doubt that he has been outstanding for the Oxford School District. Bradley, there's so much for us to get into as we talk about the school choice conversation. We've tried to be a conduit for this conversation, for all the sides and all the opinions. You wrote an editorial that we published on SuperTalk.fm last week, and it started, "Few topics in education stir as much passion as school choice. On the surface, the idea sounds simple and appealing. Give families state dollars and let them decide where to send their children to school. But beneath that slogan are serious consequences for Mississippi's children, communities, and future consequences we cannot afford to ignore." Appreciate your time this morning. Let's start by, if you don't mind, expounding on that a little bit. The idea that this is a passionate topic, but that there are consequences to perhaps going down this road.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks, Richard. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share and visit with you this morning. You know, it is a passionate topic. The reason it's a passionate topic is because we're talking about our children, right? And there's nothing more important in any community, to any family, than our kids. We want the best for our kids. And the reason I went in to talk about the consequences of those choices really revolves around one idea, and this idea of whether or not public education or education is a public good versus a consumer good or a consumer project or a consumer topic itself. So let's dive into that just a little bit, because I think that really answers your question this morning. There's a quote that you hear often used in education. This is what it says. It says, "A community is only as strong as its public schools, and its public schools are only as strong as its community." You've probably heard that quote before. And the word public is explicitly stated in that quote. And why is that? That's because public schools educate everybody, right? There is no selective process in public schools. So education, for that very quote alone, is a public good. It's not a consumer product because it benefits everybody, right? If we take education and we turn it into a consumer product, we're really dividing opportunity, and it really weakens our system. We already have a society that's about the haves and the have-nots. If we take education and we turn it into a consumer product, we've very greatly run the risk of dividing that gap in between the haves and have-nots even more. And that's not what's good for our community, Richard. Our community needs to educate everybody and educate them well.
There are lots of advocates for school choice or educational freedom, as some people call it. And a lot of the people will bring points up where they say, I want what's best for my child. The situation that they are in right now is not the best situation for them. And so I want the freedom, or I want the opportunity to choose what is best for my child. Is your argument that this is less about individual choice and more about the collective good?
Richard, that is 100% exactly what I'm saying. And look, parents absolutely deserve great options. But you know what? Real freedom, when you're talking about a community and we're talking about a state and a nation, real freedom is when every family has a great choice for their child, right? Which has a great public school choice for the child, high quality, accessible, and accountable. This is not about limiting choice. It's about making sure that every family has a high quality educational choice for their kid. Not just those who can afford tuition, not just those that, can make it through a selective admissions process, which is what the majority of private schools across our state and country do, right? The best way to expand choice is to raise the quality of every public school that is closest to families inside of their community. Look, and I'm not saying that that's not a real challenge, because it is. It is an incredible challenge. But we've come a long way, Richard. I mean, in a decade, from 50th to 16th, we're doing something right in public education in Mississippi. Why do we need to blow up the system now? That was one of the questions I asked in my editorial, right? When you think about improvement, right, you don't blow up a system that's working. You tweak the system, right, to try to continue those improvements at scale. Look, I'll use our Rebels for an example. I'm sure Coach Kippen was not excited about the score this past weekend. We didn't score enough points, right? I think he would tell you we left a lot of points on the table. But I assure you that when we go play Georgia this weekend, I bet we don't see 11 new offensive players, and I bet we don't see a whole brand new playbook. He'll tweak the system to make it better, right? He's not going to blow it up just because we didn't have as much success as he wanted this past weekend. That's what I'm advocating for.
So you've talked a lot about the success over the last decade with that rise in scores and overall educational ranking in Mississippi. I've seen a number of legislators who were in office a decade ago that said, hey, a lot of the people that are arguing against this now, the idea of more choice or school choice or some form of school choice, are the same people that were arguing against some of the initiatives that we were trying to put in place a decade ago that has led to the success that we have seen and the growth that we've seen in public education in Mississippi. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Richard. Look, I think accountability is really, really important. And I think the third grade reading gate, which is how educators across our state and public schools know it, I think it was great legislation, right? But a lot of times we don't like accountability. And that was one of those instances early on. But look, I pat Governor Reeves on the back and all those legislators that passed the third grade reading gate because it has required public schools to step up to the plate. And I think it's a major reason that we have improved across our system. But at the same time, Richard, we can't tout that accountability was so important. And then it raised the educational outcomes of schools across our state. And at the exact same time, not hold private schools accountable inside the system. Now, I did hear, I went back and heard Speaker White's response to that question when you asked him about accountability for private schools. And I appreciate you asking him that question, Richard. And I believe his statement was something along the lines of there are accountability in private schools. It's whether or not parents are willing to pay the tuition for their kid to go there. Richard, I've been in education for over 25 years. I've never seen a metric to measure student outcomes based on whether or not a parent pays tuition, right? That's not an acceptable, measurable outcome when we're talking about holding people accountable for public dollars. Like, public dollars should require public results, right? And if we're going to give public dollars somewhere else, then there should be public results to show that. And just because a parent is willing to pay tuition is not public results.
So I think there are people that are hearing what you're saying and would say, well, that's easy to say when you're the superintendent of the Oxford School District or of DeSoto County Schools or Madison County or some of the districts on the coast that are really excelling. The number of failing schools in Mississippi, D or F-rated districts, is pretty small at this point. But if you look at maybe the C-rated districts that are across the street, I don't think there's anybody that's like standing on a mountaintop saying, man, these C-rated school districts are doing absolutely great. So for the parents of children in those districts, the opportunity to perhaps send their child to a district where things are going better or there is more excellence than maybe what they're experiencing. Are you okay with the idea of district to district transfer within the public system?
That's a great question too, Richard. And I will tell you, here's how I feel about that. I would sum that up by saying that is the least worst option, right? I am certainly more open to that possibility, other than giving money to private schools when there's no accountability for results there. And that is a fair question because I do work in a great district, but I also work with a lot of those school districts that are struggling across the state. I've been inside those schools. Some of those superintendents are my good friends. And here's what I would say to that, Richard. Those guys are working really, really, really hard. Those teachers are working really, really, really hard. But let's be truthful about this. When you look, I gave you the quote at the beginning of our opening of our conversation. A community is only as strong as its public schools, and its public schools are only as strong as its community. Those communities, Richard, are dealing with so many things, adverse situations that fall well outside of educating a child. They're keeping their public schools from being successful.
I'm going to interrupt you.
You got families that are working.
I'm going to interrupt you there. We're up against a break. We'll continue this conversation in just a couple of minutes. Bradley Roberson, Superintendent of the Oxford School District, is my guest. We're back with you on Mornings with Richard Cross right after this.
Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and the SuperTalk app.
Good to be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Bradley Roberson is my guest. He's the superintendent with the Oxford School District. We're talking about the school choice debate, the educational freedom conversation that certainly has been ongoing and is going to continue, we think, into this legislative session. It appears as if that's going to be a significant topic within the legislature this year. I had one elected official tell me that to some degree we already have school choice in so much as most districts within the state do have transfer policies that are in place that allow students to enter their district if their current school district will release them. Is that in place in Oxford?
It is. And that's a pretty standard practice all across the state. The home school district has to release a student, and it takes a board vote. It's not a superintendent's decision or a principal's decision. It's a board decision to release a student, and then the incoming school board has to accept that student as well.
But are the outgoing districts willing to release students? I mean, if they've got a good student academically, athletically, socially, et cetera, are they willing to generally release that student?
Not very often does a release happen. Now, different boards have different feelings about that. It's a local board decision of how they handle that situation. Yeah. But we don't get just a ton of those that are coming into the Oxford School District. Most of the time when we receive those, it's around students with special needs who maybe are searching for other resources that we may be able to provide in the Oxford School District that other school districts can't.
Yeah. You're the quote that you went to a couple of times, talking about school districts being as strong as their community and communities being as strong as the school districts. I certainly concur with that. And, one of the things that I've talked about living in Oxford and graduating from the Oxford School District a long time ago, 26 years ago now, is that Oxford has always been incredibly supportive of public schools. And there are other districts within the state and other communities within the state, a bunch of them that have done the exact same thing. But what about those communities that aren't as supportive of public schools, that for whatever reason, whether it's resources or a general lack of concern, that they don't support public schools the way they need to be supported? Are we doing a disservice to those students if we are not allowing them to have the opportunity, if parents are able to help get their kids to school, not giving them the greater opportunity to be in a better district?
Yeah, again, Richard, I think it goes right back to that same conversation. The whole part of my op-ed article, is this a public good or competitive market? There may be, individual instances to where that may make good sense. But in the long term, when you're thinking about the public good of our entire community and our entire state, it doesn't make sense. You and I could sit here and talk about things all day long that may be good for me as an individual and my family, but it may not be good for the Oxford community. So am I going to, jump on that boat and do what's just good for me and my family, or do I take my entire community into account with that? And that's just something we have to weigh as individuals, and something we have to weigh as, those that are leaders inside of our community. Is it about us, or is it about the greater good? There's always certain instances we could pick and choose all of those situations to where it may be better for one individual or the other.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier, I've known Bradley for a long time, and I've had a chance to watch him in this role as superintendent for a number of years now. And so I know, because I've seen it, he cares greatly, you care greatly about public education, not just in Oxford, but across the state of Mississippi. You talked about the success that Mississippi has had, and I had a colleague, mentor, business person who's been very, very successful in Mississippi that I had trouble kind of seeing the way he measured success, because I would see an achievement and he would say, yeah, but what's next? And was always pushing to the next thing, as opposed to just being proud of what had been accomplished. So when you look at the progress that Mississippi has made and recognize that there's more work still to do, as a public educator, as a superintendent in Mississippi schools, what's next in terms of pushing forward and not just being, oh, look at us, look how far we've come?
Yeah. Listen, I hope we don't have a single superintendent in the state of Mississippi that's sitting there in their seat this morning, patting themselves on the back for the accomplishments that we've had. Because if we do, they probably don't need to be leading our public schools any longer, because status quo is not the answer. And if there's one thing you know about mine and your relationship over the last 20-something years, status quo is not even in my vocabulary. Yeah. I don't believe in that. So the next steps for Oxford, DeSoto County, or any school that's struggling is, Richard, we already know what works, right? It's investing in early childhood education, right? It is making sure that we have well-prepared teachers and our schools have the resources that they need. We continue to scale those processes and all of those tools that we know what works over the last 10 years into our struggling systems. But here's the other thing we do. The Oxfords of the world, the Madisons of the world, the Clintons of the world, all of us that are being successful, we just can't sit by either. We have to continue to test small change ideas to refine our systems to continue to eliminate variance, right? Look, Richard, education is all about variance. The more variance that we can remove within our systems, the greater the outcomes are for all students in Mississippi. That's the idea. So even the Oxfords of the world can't sit by and just because we're being successful. We have to continue to remove those variances so that we can scale them to our friends in other parts of the state. That's other work that I do, Richard. You probably don't even know that. I work with a group called the National Center for School University Partnerships, where we get Mississippi districts together from all across the state. and we say, hey, man, let's talk about your system and what's working well. Let me talk about my system and what's working well. And what are small change ideas we can implement so that we can scale these changes all across our state? So we're starting that work and working together to make sure that that happens.
Bradley Roberson, Superintendent of the Oxford School District, just a few minutes left. There's a conversation that I think runs parallel to the school choice conversation, education freedom conversation, and it's about making the most of resources. There are a lot more districts in the state of Mississippi than there are counties in the state of Mississippi. District consolidation is a topic that always comes up and then seems to just kind of get pushed to the side, and we keep moving along. Are you an advocate of consolidating districts within the state, within each county?
Look, I'm an advocate for doing whatever is the best to serve every kid across Mississippi. You know, if there are situations that you're talking about with consolidation to where, you know, that we think that it benefits the students in that community, then yeah, I mean, I would advocate for that. But again, we can't be so short-sighted that we're not looking at the end goal. And the end goal is to providing the best high-quality education for every kid in our state. And whatever that takes to do that is what we need to do. If that's consolidation, then fine. But I'm also a guy that wants to understand and know the research of how that's going to impact students in a positive way. That's another thing with school choice. I mean, Richard, I haven't seen, if you look at the states that have done this in the last decade, I haven't seen to where there's positive student outcomes across these states. If we think moving a child, that all of these other circumstances in life, whether it's a parent working 3 jobs or living in poverty, which is what you see in these communities, if we think just shifting them to another school or to a private school is going to change that circumstance and all of a sudden they're going to be overly successful, I mean, we're really missing it there, right? We have to deal with some of those other issues. Look, I hate to say it, but we have kids that come to the Oxford School District every day that learning, Richard, is not their top priority. But why is that? It's because of all of the other circumstances in life that are constantly beating them down. I tell our folks all of the time, the days of school systems just teaching math, English, science, and social studies are over. I mean, all of the ill wills of society fall on one place to fix. And you know where that place is, Richard? It's public education. And if we don't fix them, they're not going to get fixed. Yeah. That's just the reality of it right now, right? We have to step up to the plate and be able to accept that and be able to put things in place to make sure that happens for our communities.
Bradley Roberson, Superintendent with the Oxford School District. If you want to read his editorial, you can do so on our website, supertalk.fm. It's right there and under the news tab. Certainly makes you think a lot. A lot of opinions on this topic. I appreciate, Bradley, you spending some time with us this morning and sharing your perspective.
Yes, sir, Richard. Thank you. It's good to talk with you.
You as well. We'll talk soon. Mornings of Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Bradley Roberson, a huge proponent of public education and the role that public schools play, not just within the state of Mississippi, but within our individual communities. Good conversation there. We'll get to some of your messages on the C-Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Right now, though, we'll take a timeout. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. We're back with you right after this.
From the Seabrook.
The Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Back to Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi and the Super Talk app.
Good to be with you this morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. The C Spire text line is open to you. 601-879-4395. Fairly active this morning, as seems to be the case anytime we have a conversation about school choice, about educational freedom in the state of Mississippi, and it's a conversation that is not going away. Big news in the morning, what is happening in Israel, where President Trump addressed a session of the Knesset in Jerusalem, and is now about to head to Egypt with world leaders from across the Middle East to try to negotiate a lasting peace. Now the hard work begins in that part of the world. Let's get to some of your messages. C Spire text line 601-879-4395. Some of these are like some of these messages are really thoughtful, and some of them are, no, this is my opinion and I don't want to hear anything else. And that's okay. We'll try to work our way through these. Andy, who almost always chimes in on this and is a big proponent of school choice, and has told us, if I remember correctly, Andy, that the reason that you are for school choice is because of situations within your household. And with regard to kind of the overall conversation with Bradley Roberson, he says, no thanks. I know what's better for my child than Mr. Roberson. Why is he afraid of competition? I don't think there's anything, and again, we're just talking here. I'm not taking one side or the other. I see positive arguments from both sides, and we'll see where this goes. But having known Bradley a really long time, competition is the last thing that he's afraid of. That's just not true. But I think your sentence maybe sums up the position that Bradley Roberson, the superintendent at the Oxford School District, has, where you say, I know what's better for my child than Mr. Roberson. And he said pretty clearly this morning that he understands that individual children and individual families have needs, specific needs. But his position is looking at it for the collective of children. And that's what gets, to me, that's what gets difficult about this issue. Maybe you are for the right to choose, the opportunity to choose where your child goes to school and how they are educated, because that is what is right for your child. But if you look at it in the collective, you've got a different opinion. You're like, okay, we're trying to do what is best for all kids, not just individual kids. Matthew says education freedom is more than just about freedom of choice. It's also about workforce development. Unfortunately, large public institutions are traditionally not able to be flexible enough to meet those needs. They have a cookie-cutter model that doesn't allow creativity and learning and meeting the needs of industry. And Matthew, I would say traditionally you're probably right. And there probably are districts that are still not engaging with CTE programs, whether that's funding or staffing or vision or whatever the reason may be. But I would say that you see more career technical education opportunities within our public schools than you've ever seen before. And I'm not talking about a 1960s, 70s, 80s, even early 90s model where you've got home ec available for female students and shop class available for male students, and there is occasional crossover, but generally speaking, it's shop for boys and home ec for girls. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about intensive programs that are focused on coding or trade skills, whether it's HVAC or electrical or plumbing or construction or construction management, you got a lot of those programs in a lot of schools across the state of Mississippi. Now, again, that may be a conversation about, okay, yeah, the high-performing schools have got that, but the lower-performing schools don't. When I asked Bradley Roberson about district-to-district transfer, his response was that was the best, least good option, I think was the way that he described it. I think I would differ with him a little bit there because, to me, it closes the gap on this debate a little bit. If, let's just use two counties in central Mississippi as an example. And this is not picking on any county at all. It's just I'm thinking about two that are neighboring. And I'm actually going to use the inverse of the example you think I might use so it doesn't feel like I'm picking on anybody. Canton County and Madison County are right next door to each other. And for whatever reason, maybe because Madison Central, in the eyes of a parent, is too big of a school, and you've got a parent that lives in Madison County that would prefer their child go to school in Canton County, whether it's the Canton City Schools or the Canton Public Schools. And that parent makes the commitment, I'm going to get my kid there, going to make sure they're where they're supposed to be, but this is a better environment for me. Wait, is Canton in Madison County? Did I do that wrong?
Canton is Madison County.
Canton is Madison County. My bad, Thomas. Thank you. I just made up a county for Mississippi.
You could do the
County
use Yoknapatawpha. That's the Faulkner.
just go generic. What county is directly north of Madison County?
Holmes County.
Holmes County. So again, I'll use the inverse here. Let's say that you have a kid that lives in the northern part of Madison County, and for whatever reason, a parent wants that child to go to school in Holmes County. This example is not making sense.
It's a confusing and complicated issue. I mean...
Well, no, it's not making sense because it would be a very rare situation where a parent in Madison County would likely want to send one of their kids to Holmes County.
It actually happened where there was a quarterback at Ridgeland, and he transferred to Holmes County Central.
Okay.
And,
well, there you go.
Yeah. So father was a coach at HCC and had played at Ridgeland. I mean, in the sport world, it has happened recently, yeah.
Yeah.
Heck of a player,
Thomas
too.
suggested that I use Rankin County and Madison County. And say maybe you've got a Clinton's in Rankin County, right?
Hines County.
Clinton's still in Hines?
Yes, sir. Clinton is a...
Man, I'm so off on my Mississippi geography this morning. I'm usually pretty strong in this area.
We got a carpetbagger. No. Clinton and Hines, and it's as you get out, as you're going, east. I'm sorry, west toward Vicksburg. So you're getting out toward the Big Black River would be the next thing out. You got
I'm with you.
Bolton and all that good stuff.
The point that I was making in that, when Bradley Roberson said that's the best, least good option, I think I'd push back on that a little bit. I think if you've got a parent that is committed to making sure that their kid is able to get to a school in a neighboring county because they think that is a better option for them, whatever the option may be, then I think you probably should be able to do that.
Well, and one thing that I think where your example would make a lot of sense is, let's say you live out on the edge of Hines County as you get over into Warren County. Very rural area, beautiful, but not any really big schools until you get over to Vicksburg and Warren Central or Clinton. So you got that area in there where it's kind of a void. And so let's just say a kid from, the eastern part of Warren Central, it was easier for them to get to Clinton as a school, and it they were able to be accepted there versus, let's say, going to Warren Central.
Yeah.
These are some obvious choices because those schools are a little far apart, But yet, for that kid, it may make better sense, even though in another county, to be able to be closer to Clinton. That's just a thought I had.
Somebody said Bradley makes the most sense out of this that I've heard so far. Have him on the show more often. Somebody said use an Oxford and Lafayette example, even within the same county. You live in the county but want your kids to go to the city school district. You live in the city but want your kids to go to the county school district. Should they be able to do that?
Should there be a city school district and should there be a county school district?
Somebody's saying it's time for me to retake Mississippi history. Come on now.
Geography?
Come on. Take a time out. We're back with you. I was trying to be too politically correct in doing that, honestly.
From the on your radio, on our app, or on your smart speaker. We're always free. SuperTalk Mississippi, your home for Mornings with Richard Cross.
Good to be with you on this Monday morning, the 13th of August, to give you an idea of where we are in the calendar, on the calendar.
13th of August? Did you just say August?
Maybe so.
I thought you did. I was like, that's my sister's birthday, man. I need to call her this morning.
Truth be told, today's October 13th, by the way. Well, just to finish what I was going to say, to show you where we are on the calendar, October 13th, I just saw a commercial during the break for Hallmark Channel Countdown to Christmas starts this Friday.
Yeah. Ready for it, buddy.
Yeah.
I am ready.
The example that I was trying to give, Thomas, I'm on my third cup of coffee right now. It's just, I don't know.
It's a Monday. You had a long
Thomas
week.
pointed this out. He says everybody over the weekend was tripping to be politically correct when talking about the shootings, that we couldn't actually talk about the issue, and people just defaulted to thoughts and prayers. Yeah, maybe so. It's not that I was trying to be politically correct. I was trying to be sensitive to the fact that some school districts are better than others, and I wasn't just trying to use low-hanging fruit as the example.
Hey, I'll say one.
But I got hung up on counties versus districts, and then my brain just malfunctioned.
I would say one that makes a lot of sense to what you're saying, though, is Northwest Rankin, and a few miles down the road is Pisgah. Northwest Rankin's a 7A school. Pisgah is a much smaller school. Both schools are rated extremely highly. But let's say you live in the Northwest Rankin district, but maybe it's a little too big. Maybe it's not getting, the teacher and student ratio you're looking for. So you go, hey, I'd really like to go out to this smaller school that has a great rating, a great principal, and is really growing. That would make a lot of sense. I'm sure Pisgah would say, yeah, we really like growing. And Northwest Rankin may be sitting over here going, man, we're kind of busting at the seams here. Yeah. How do you solve that? I mean, that's a real choice issue, right? I mean, that's one of those that makes sense. It's not just about the kid or this. It may be just more about what fits best for the district itself. Both schools are in the same district itself. So,
sure.
I'm just curious.
And to use, Lance, the Oxford-Lafayette conversation, I mean, we're a week removed from the official press release from Lafayette about saying that they're not going to continue to play Oxford, and they talked about the growth that Oxford has had over the years, and maybe you're a parent of a child in the Oxford school district that recognizes it's an outstanding school option, but in terms of growth, this may be bigger than what I think is best for my child, and so I'd actually like for them to go to Lafayette. That's a little bit smaller district.
Or the vice versa, right? They may say, hey, Oxford,
I want them to be in a bigger environment with more, so I just...
It's a tough issue. I mean, I don't know the right answer, and we've covered each side. I think you're so fair with it. And
that drives some people crazy.
Yeah, that's the problem, is being fair with this. It definitely stirs up a lot of emotion because people are very passionate about their children and obviously very passionate about public or private school education. But, I love having this debate because it's not an easy one. And it's like, how do you move the chess pieces around so they best fit? I think Mr. Roberson was kind of saying the same thing there, and I agree. How do you maximize the quality of education in a system that isn't broken, but at the same time allowing opportunities for those that may not necessarily have them or that need a different setting? I mean, there's no one pen stroke that fits it all. There's no auto pen, right, that just solves all things.
Yeah. I'm going to be fascinated to see when we get to January what the actual legislation looks like. Right?
Oh, yeah. This is going to be epic.
Does the House come with a universal school choice bill, which is what the Speaker has advocated for? Does the Senate come with a perhaps more measured school choice bill, which is kind of what the Lieutenant Governor has advocated for? Does the Lieutenant Governor bring forth a bill that has some level of school choice in it, but is a larger education bill that perhaps includes a teacher pay raise, that perhaps one of the some stricter standards on chronic absenteeism, which is an issue that the Lieutenant Governor has harped on repeatedly when we have visited. Legislation that perhaps includes a cell phone ban across all schools. And here's what I wonder. You remember last year how HB1 was ready to drop the moment the gavel dropped? And so largely the House was able to control the conversation on tax reform a year ago. Might the Senate take a page out of the House's playbook with an education bill that they are ready to drop as soon as they gavel in for the 2026 session to try to control the conversation in the same way the House did a year ago? 8 o'clock hour on the way. Commissioner of Public Safety Sean Tindell will lead us off after the break.
Where you come first for news. Fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Back with you, Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Glad to be with you. Monday morning, October 13th. Fact check me if you like. I'm sure that's accurate. 100%. October 13th, right, Lance?
We're on it.
Thank you. We'll see if we can be a little more accurate here with our geography and our dates in the 8 o'clock hour this morning. A man who has to be accurate, the Commissioner of Public Safety in the state of Mississippi, Sean Tindell, joins us right now. In what had to feel like a recurring nightmare, Friday and Saturday, call after call coming to DPS and law enforcement, shootings in Leland, Heidelberg, South Delta, Lorman, and then in Jackson as well. Mr. Commissioner, what a terrible weekend from a public safety, law enforcement standpoint, really across a bunch of communities in Mississippi.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, and we had such beautiful weather and a lot of reasons to be celebrating at these homecoming events. And it is very sad and deplorable that it turned and the senseless waste of life. And so it was a long weekend for law enforcement in these communities. And of course, our folks, the Department of Public Safety, MBI, MHP, Capitol Police, really all our divisions were all hands on deck trying to assist and do these local departments respond to these incidences.
I know at least the initial reporting is that these are unrelated. What's going on? It feels like more and more we are reading about shootings, people dying, and more times than not, it's young people. I know the age ranges for victims in this particular weekend spree kind of spreads between, high teens or even a youth in Jackson up into the 40s, but it feels like more and more this is happening with younger people.
It is, and they're not related, but there is, I think, connections, right? And some of this is what's going on in these communities. And one of the things that I've been able to talk to sheriffs and chiefs about across the state in their community is juvenile, and it's a big issue. I mean, we're seeing not just juvenile crime, but violence amongst juveniles with guns and firearms, and that's the response, not just the fight that you used to see after a football game 20 years ago, but now they're getting guns out, and it's a big issue, and it gets one of those things where law enforcement has to respond, but it's not going to solve the problem. We got to look into the homes that a lot of these young people are in, and then we've got to do something to create some accountability, even when they're those young teenagers, 14, 15 years old, and they're committing crimes. And so if they're not dealt with at that age, then they go on to commit crimes like this and really endanger our entire communities. And you look at Leland, that wasn't just one shooter. That was a whole group that got into an argument, a fight, and then guns erupted in a crowd, and some bystanders were injured, as well as some of the gunmen themselves.
Do you believe, or can you say at this point, whether or not the issue in Leland was gang related?
I can't say. Obviously there's probably some sort of nexus there, and what we're seeing on the gang front is not the traditions of the 90s and 80s. I mean, a lot of these are street level gangs, smaller groups that are affiliated with each other, and so in that respect, probably so. But it's not the Crips and the Bloods and the things of the past that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I guess it was somewhat more simple when it was red bandanas and blue bandanas, and that was about all there was to figure out. But it certainly is more complex than that. I hesitate to mention this because I know the way people are going to react when I say it. I'm an advocate for Second Amendment rights. I know you are as well. I think most people in Mississippi are advocates for Second Amendment rights, the right to own and carry a firearm. Get that out of the way first. Do we have a gun problem in terms of accessibility, especially to young people?
I think there's a couple of issues. I mean, one, I don't know that we have a gun problem. We do have a responsible gun ownership problem in my mind. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of guns. I'm one of them. But leaving your gun in your car where it can get stolen is not a good idea. And I can't tell you how many of these weapons that we find, particularly in stolen firearms. So if you're going to own a gun, you need to be responsible with it. You need to keep it on person. You don't need to leave it in your car. And you need to make sure it's always secure. So I feel like, making sure that folks are responsible with their gun ownership is important. And then from a law enforcement standpoint, making sure that we can get these illegal guns off the streets as a stolen firearm. It's illegal. They shouldn't have it. And trying to make sure that those that are convicted felons don't have firearms. Or if they're dealing drugs and they have a firearm, let's take the guns away from them. So there's all those components that go along with gun ownership that most of the time is right. I mean, there's it's one of the things I think that makes this country great is the Second Amendment. But there's a responsibility that comes along with that, much like freedom of speech. You can't yell fire in a movie theater, right? But freedom of speech is one of those core tenets of American principles that make this country great. And with rights come responsibilities, and we need to make sure that people are doing those correctly.
What is the level of frustration with law enforcement when it feels like, one step forward, two steps back? And maybe that's not a fair characterization, but it feels like there's so much work that has gone into public safety issues, to, like in the Jackson metro area, reducing the homicide rate. And we know that it's been a good year in terms of that level of focus, but only to see things like this popping up in different areas that aren't necessarily Jackson Metro.
Well, and I think there's things that really need to be addressed in our communities. I pulled some stats and put them on our social media page a couple of weeks ago from the medical examiner's office, and it was interesting that if you were a white male and it was a suicide, that was about 80% of those were white males. 20% or so were black males. And then on the other side of the equation, if it was a homicide, African Americans were much more likely to be killed by homicide, 80%, compared to Caucasians was 20%. And so we've got a lot of issues in our state. We're talking about mental health, whether we're talking about safe neighborhoods, and all those things need to be put into the forefront. And again, I think law enforcement is put in the middle of all those things. And we need to look at it not just from a law enforcement standpoint, but what's happening in these homes, what's happening at the Department of Mental Health. They've, I think, been a good job there recently trying to make improvements. Child Protection Services, Andrea Sanders has been trying to do a lot to get these kids out of these bad homes. And until we start making significant strides in those arenas, I think those numbers are still going to stay high, even though we might start seeing some reductions.
We've seen the National Guard conversation pop up in multiple states, multiple cities, mostly in larger cities so far under the Trump administration. Governor Reeves has talked about Jackson in particular and saying, not sure that we need that right now, but I'm certainly open to the possibility if it feels like the need arises. When you look at this issue of deploying the National Guard to cities within the United States, I know there are lots of reasons for trepidation. Is it a net gain?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think anytime you can make step forwards, it's a net gain. And I do think that there are some good short-term results, type of saturation. But I think long-term, what we need to see more of is communities committed to public safety. I was pleasantly surprised in Cleveland, Mississippi, a town of about 10 or 11,000 people. They have 47 full-time officers. They have a starting salary of $61,000 for those officers. Had a homicide in 18 months. That is a community that has committed itself to public safety by hiring good officers and hiring a lot of them. And it's made the streets of Cleveland safer than some of the other towns in that same region. So I think every community leader, and state leader for that matter, needs to take a strong public safety, the number of officers we have in our communities, and making sure they're paid a salary that's commensurate with the level of professionalism that they need and the demands of the job. And I think when you do that, you get those good results. I mean, look at what Sheriff Togel's doing up in DeSoto County and the communities up there that have committed themselves to public safety. There's over 900 local law enforcement officers in DeSoto County. Wow. There's a reason why the law-abiding citizens of Memphis are moving to DeSoto County. It's safe. They're keeping that criminal element out of there. Same thing in Madison and Rankin County. Same thing in Harrison County. Those committees, those counties, and those cities that commit them to public safety have good results, and we need more of that in some of these other towns.
I hate the idea of just throwing money at a problem and hoping it'll go away, but those resources are certainly vital to growing those police forces and law enforcement communities. Commissioner Tindell, always appreciate your time. Hopefully this is a better news week than this past weekend was.
We'll keep our fingers crossed and prayers open. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Tindell, Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety here in Mississippi, recapping what was a rough weekend and trying to talk about some of the solutions that he sees that make sense going forward. We're back with you. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Where you come first for news. Fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you this morning. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. Thanks for being with us. Had someone send me an article during the break, and the headline of it grabbed my attention, and so I started, and then I heard the music, Lance, and I just told him, I was like, you send me an article that grabs my attention in a 3-minute break. No bueno. no good.
Yeah. Need the long break, the one coming up. Yeah,
absolutely. I don't even know if that'll be enough time, but we'll see. I sent Thomas a message. Some of you will laugh at this. And Thomas has been active this morning on the C Spire text line. Here's what I sent him. Those of you that are longtime listeners to the show, you know that I know that Thomas drives some of you crazy. You know that sometimes Thomas drives me crazy, but I do appreciate the interaction. And I said, Thomas, I wonder if we instituted all of your conservative/utopian ideas, if all of our problems would go away, or if we would just have a different set of problems.
Well, what I do know about mankind is we will definitely figure out a way to create a problem.
Amen and amen. There is no question about that. C-Spire text line, legislators cannot pass simple Tim Tebow bill. Don't expect them to pass school choice. The Tim Tebow bill was the act that would have allowed homeschooled students to participate in public school athletics and extracurricular activities, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir. That is...
let's see here. I went to high school with Chris Newell. He was one of the young men that was murdered in Heidelberg over the weekend. Really sad stuff. Terrible. Yeah. What was the deal with the cars on fire at the JSU game? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know, but there was 4 or 5 cars that were affected. One, it started with one car, and it had moved to the others according to the press release that had come out that evening. And early in the morning, it was updated. Did not see anything that said it was nefarious. They didn't know, but it may have been where it was a battery fire. I'm not saying that's the case, but one car started the others, and it was a serious blaze. I mean,
yeah.
But as far as the starting point, it was one vehicle.
Andy sends us another message. He says he doesn't care what's best for the district. We need to worry about what's best for the child.
But the system is not built that way.
Well, yeah. I actually, I wholeheartedly, I understand the sentiment, Andy. You want what's best for your child. I want what's best for my child. But the idea that I don't care about the district, I could not disagree with that more. I just couldn't.
Well, and it's just not built that way.
Yeah, in the way that Bradley Roberson, the superintendent for the Oxford School District, was describing it and talking about it this morning. And I do think it's an interesting way to look at this, where he describes education as a public good, not a consumer product. And I think about the other public entities. Sean Tindell just on with us. He was talking about the communities that have committed to law enforcement are safer communities. The communities that have committed to robust public education have better public education. They have better public schools. The communities that have committed to health care have better medical options for their citizens. But committed is a code word for money. And there are some communities that have access to far more money than others for lots and lots and lots of reasons. Right? I mean, you think about the communities that are the most robust when it comes to cash. And by the way, cash comes from tax dollars. Where are you talking about? You're talking about some of the communities on the coast where tourism is a big deal. There is a large tax base related to major industry. You think about Madison County and Rankin County, in particular, there in central Mississippi. Talking about high population centers, lots of people with good jobs, real estate that is more valuable, leading to more tax-related revenue tied to real estate.
I think that makes a good point too. That public education generally, as it was established, it was built to help also create a community, out in areas where you didn't have big cities. I mean, you think of the educational opportunities that would have been, void had you not had schools out in, say, Flowers and Edwards and all over. And so it helped develop communities in the sticks of Mississippi. So are we trying to, and again, it's just a question, are we trying to move everybody out of the country and into heavy density population areas?
Well, but
because
here's the thing,
that may be an unintended consequence is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but
I mean, we're going to abandon the hinterlands of the state in favor of the population centers? I don't know.
Hold on a second, because while that is true in the big picture, it's not exclusively true, because you can point to small school districts that are doing well, rural school districts that are doing well.
And they're very important to those communities.
Absolutely.
Just like the church is, just like the church and the post office. They're anchors in those communities.
I mean, I think about, it's relatively close to where I live. If you drive east on Highway 30 out of Oxford, headed toward New Albany, when you cross the county line into Union County, you're not very far in before you come up on the West Union School District. Now, does West Union, which is a very, very small school, have the resources that the Oxford School District has, or that the Tupelo School District, another, 30 miles to its east have? Of course not. They've got good kids. They've got competitive athletics. They've got teachers that are showing up every day and are educating those young boys and young girls and getting them ready for whatever is next in life. I think back to, good grief, how long has it been now? It's been over a decade. The Smithville tornado in North Mississippi.
Yeah, it was 10 years ago, I think.
But you remember the little bitty dot on a map community of Smithville and the way it came together.
Well, and
the way they rallied around, a new high school football field or baseball stadium after that area was just decimated and destroyed. That's a good school district in a community that cares deeply about its school district.
April 27th, 2011. So, yeah.
Good grief, almost.
But and that
wasn't it on 20 or 15 years
what
ago.
I will say, and I want to mention, I think I'm glad you mentioned that, because that Smithville football team was unstoppable for many, many years. That tornado, I don't know if it had anything to do with that, changing the course, but that school was such an anchor in that community. And watching that community come together after such a devastating tornado and such loss centered and was seemed to me around that school and that community. And I just don't want to see that go away. And I know that's a...
Well, and then again, so we've talked about bigger communities that are wealthier. We've talked about some little bitty communities. What about the ones that are in between? I think about the Corinth School District, for example. Do a great job in the Corinth School District in terms of educating, in terms of competing athletically and with extracurricular activities, in terms of getting kids ready for the next step. I'm just using some examples in North Mississippi that happen to be close to me. I think about the Pontotoc School District, Pontotoc County. And Pontotoc's got a bunch of, what is it? You got North Pontotoc, South Pontotoc, Pontotoc, and is there East Pontotoc also?
I know there's no East Pontotoc, but I think there's 4 in that area.
But the Pontotoc School District does a good job. And that's kind of an in-between size. It's not a little bitty 1A type school in a tiny community, and it's not anywhere close to a metro area. They're kind of... It takes a commitment from the community. Even if that means limited resources, it's about doing the most with those dollars.
From the
From the heart of Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C., this is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on SuperTalk Mississippi.
At Community Bank, we're here for every part of your financial journey. Looking to manage your personal finances? Our banking services make it simple, secure, and tailored to you. Ready to grow your business? We offer expert guidance and custom solutions to help your business thrive. Dreaming of a new home? Our mortgage specialists are here to make the process seamless. All designed with you in mind. We're more than just a bank. We're your biggest partner for life's biggest moments. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. JT Mitchell joins us now. He is the news director on the SuperTalk Mississippi news team, and unfortunately, it was a busy weekend for our news staff and other news staffs as well. I would first point you to supertalk.fm. Click on the news tab and keep up with everything that is happening in the state of Mississippi. JT, a deadly weekend, a scary weekend in lots of different communities across the state.
Unfortunately so, Richard. Good morning, by the way.
To you as well?
I spent a lot of my weekend either on the phone or texting with law enforcement sources across the entire state. I mean, you had Leland, you had Rolling Fork, you had Heidelberg, you had Lorman, you had Jackson, and I mean, it's got to be one of the deadliest weekends, or at least most violent weekends this state has seen in a very long time.
Yeah, and it was like they were all kind of at least loosely tied to football games. You had the Leland. It was called kind of a block party homecoming celebration that spilled late into the Friday night hours into Saturday morning. Heidelberg's homecoming. South Delta's had a football game. And then you've got, on a couple of college campuses or off campus but around football games with Alcorn State and Jackson State. Just, I'm kind of at a loss for words this morning, JT. I mean, as the news was coming across throughout the weekend, you're like, what's going on? Like, what is going on? And this is something that you and I talked about last week when we talked about it with Commissioner Tindell just a moment ago. It seems more and more this is young people, use that term as loosely as you care to, that are dying and that are involved in shootings.
Yeah, you asked Commissioner Tindell what's going on. I mean, you asked him that exact question. And I'm with you, Richard. It feels like people are just off their rockers. I don't know. You talk about how a lot of these shootings were surrounding homecoming-related events or the football game at South Delta High School. It wasn't homecoming, but it was still a football game. Alcorn State, that one happened inside a building on campus, the Industrial Technology Building. And so I don't know if that one was tied to their homecoming game. The Jackson State shooting happened in or near the tailgate section, and that's right from Capitol Police, by the way. I had somebody challenge me on that over the weekend, saying I was misreporting that. I only report what law enforcement tells me. So I don't know. And then a couple weeks ago, you had a shooting related to a Gaucher homecoming event. And I'm not saying we need to cancel homecomings by any means, but what I am saying is these kinds of events, homecomings, block parties, etc., are meant to be fun. They are meant to be a time where you can get back together with your classmates, some of whom you haven't seen in years or decades, and catch up. Enjoy. It's not supposed to be a time for senseless violence. And motives have not really been released. There's not many motives out there, so I'm not going to go out and say that this was a grudge that someone's been holding since high school. I don't know that. But all I'm saying is that these are events that are supposed to bring the community together or bring the community back together, and they get marred by stupid acts. Let's be honest. Commissioner Tindell, I had a few takeaways from you guys' conversation. The FBI announced yesterday, pictures at supertalk.fm, that they're looking for 4 unidentified subjects. I heard him say that one or maybe multiple of the gunmen in that Leland shooting were injured. That makes you wonder if they're in the hospital or if they have that on camera, and they were struck by gunfire or what. So I really am interested to see the total number of perpetrators from that Leland incident that left 6 people dead and at least another 10 injured.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to be interesting to see where that investigation goes. And I think something that you pointed out last week, I mean, obviously this relates specifically to the shooting around Jackson State, but the Hinds County Sheriff's Department, the Jackson Police Department, Capitol Police, their relentlessness in solving some of these crimes and finding out what happened and arresting the perpetrators has been really, really good. And you can't prevent everything. You can't, but it's just a horrible situation from across the weekend.
No, and that situation outside Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium was especially sad because it was a child who was hit by gunfire, and that child was transported to UMC. Thank God UMC is right across the street and treated and hopefully will be okay. Great point, though. The solvability rate statewide is good, but when you look at Jackson specifically, the solvability rate is one of the best in the nation for a city its size. And so they are going to be relentless. I think that all of the agencies working on it, local, state, and federal, are going to be as relentless as possible, as they always are. Governor Tate Reeves said over the weekend that every perpetrator will be brought to justice. He will make sure of it. And of course, Commissioner Tindell with DPS works under him. I think you're going to have a lot of arrests made this week. That's just a gut feeling. You already had an arrest down in Heidelberg. And you mentioned teenagers, Richard. He was 18. And he was arrested for killing an expectant mother and another person. His name is Tyler Goodlow. On the campus of Heidelberg High School. One was found in the bleachers, the other near the baseball field.
So multiple places on campus.
Yes. Wow. $2 million cash bond. He's still in jail. And so all that being said, because it is hard to put this all in a paragraph, right? When you have this many shootings happening in the span of hours on Friday, and then Saturday you had a couple sporadically, it's hard to put down on paper. It's hard to put in words if you're a radio host. But at the end of the day, if you know anything about the situations in Leland, Heidelberg, Rolling Fork, Lorman, or Jackson, call the police. There are ways to submit tips anonymously, whether that be through the FBI or through Crime Stoppers. If you have video evidence, if you have photos, even if it's a Snapchat, if you took a Snapchat from the block party in Leland, that could be what breaks a case open. Give it to authorities.
Pass that along. It's not just bad news. Thankfully, there's some good stuff to talk about from the weekend. Cruising the coast appears to, as it begins to wrap up, or maybe has wrapped up, another rousing success with huge crowds.
Yeah, it ended yesterday, and this year's event was bigger and better than ever. The 29th edition 10,334 cars officially registered.
Oh, wow. Wasn't that number at like 7,500 going into the event, and you or maybe event organizers predicted it was going to be in the neighborhood of 10,000?
I'll take credit for that one, yes.
Attaboy.
And so that's a record for Cruising the Coast. Last year's number was around 9,960. And they put this map out there, which I will put on our website at some point this morning, showing each state where cars came from. And you have to remember that thousands of other cars don't register and still come down. But this year, 42 states were represented. You also had Canada, Australia, England, and Germany. You know, what I was wowed about was Hawaii even had a car. I don't know how that works. I guess put it on a boat, get it to Mississippi. And then Alaska had 4 cars. Of course, the bulk of the cars were Mississippi, Louisiana, and Tennessee. But, I mean, if you're one of the organizers of Cruising the Coast, you have to wake up today with a big smile on your face. And then last week, all of the talk show hosts here at SuperTalk who were live on remote, you know, I had an absolute fantastic time listening to the mayors of different cities talk about how important this is. I mean, we joke all the time, you and I do, about how traffic on Beach Boulevard is god-awful during Cruising the Coast. Well, that's worth the sacrifice with $30 million in economic impact being made.
No argument there. No argument. Give yourself a little more time or find an alternate route during this particular week. I got a little bit more coming up with JT, news director JT Mitchell with the SuperTalk Mississippi news team. Final segment of Mornings with Richard Cross with you on the other side of this timeout. More MRC after this.
I'm on a Mexican radio.
From the heart of Mississippi to the halls of Washington, D.C., this is Mornings with Richard Cross, your source for hard-hitting political insight and unfiltered truth. Now, here's more on Super Talk Mississippi.
Glad to be with you this morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. Football news going into this weekend. Both Ole Miss and Mississippi State are on the road. And as it pertains to Ole Miss, the Ole Miss-Georgia matchup will have College Game Day on site. Athens.
In Athens. The only way it'd be better is if it were in Oxford, but it's in Athens, and so some Ole Miss fans will get to enjoy that there in person, but the rest of you can tune in Saturday morning to ESPN and get your fix. Anytime College Game Day.
And then tune in to Super Talk Mississippi starting at 12:30 on many of these Super Talk stations for the Ole Miss Radio Network.
That's absolutely correct. So just have your TV going and then your radio going in the corner. You could even turn the sound off on the game and listen to DK on the broadcast, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. But College Game Day will be in Athens, and anytime College Game Day is around, it adds a little flair to the mix.
It does.
You also have Bailey Zimmerman and Luke Combs performing at Game Day. Top 10 matchup. Should be a good game.
My daughter was, when I showed her that, she was like, Can we go? I was like, I got to work this weekend. I'm sorry.
Can she drive?
She has a permit.
Okay, she can't get there yet.
She will not be.
Nope.
I will not be permitting her to head off to Athens, Georgia, on her own.
No, not yet.
Not going to happen.
But it'll be a lot of fun. It will be.
Mississippi State in Gainesville taking on the Florida Gators.
Could be a win too. I mean, this is a great opportunity for Mississippi State. You're coming off a bye week. You hope to get healthy. The offensive line was pretty wrecked after the Texas A&M game. Fluff Bothwell, probably, I mean, if I had to guess, won't be back, but maybe he got healed a little bit and could make a return by the end of the year. And State is only, 2 wins away from a bowl game. And that's something we haven't said around here in quite a while.
Yeah. Southern Miss headed to Lafayette. Golden Eagles are 4-2, also 2 wins away from a bowl game. They're off to a 2-0 start in Sun Belt Conference play. They will take on the Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana. Braxton's been really good at quarterback. 13 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions so far this season. That's the guy that was Braylon Braxton, the preseason Sun Belt Conference Offensive Player of the Year.
And he's lived up to it. Coach Huff, great conversation with Brian Haydad recently. He's the man, too. I mean, he's got me fired up, ready to run through a brick wall for USM football. The way he's turned around that program, they were 1-11 a year ago. And to be 4-2 at this point in the year, I still think that's better than most USM fans expected.
Yeah. But now you get to this point and you're like, hey, let's get 2 more. And then let's get greedy and get 2 more after that. So we'll see how it goes the rest of the way for Southern Miss, the halfway point of their season. I know you want to mention Banana Ball, but I have a story I have to share with you.
Let's do it.
From Portland, Oregon, protesters rallying against the Trump administration in Portland put the city's quirky and irreverent reputation on display Sunday. You know how they did that, JT?
I think I saw the picture. Are you talking
By
about
pedaling through the
guy?
streets naked in an emergency edition of the annual World Naked Bike Ride. It was raining. It was in the 50s. Some people still bore it all and or donned it all or donned nothing. Honestly, I thought it was lame, the people that were riding with clothes on.
Yeah, get naked if everybody else is naked.
You either do it or you don't, but you can't do it halfway. And then
riding a bike naked? Ooh.
Yeah, it doesn't sound terribly comfortable.
No.
It doesn't. And then they finished the ride off with what they called a naked die-in. All of the people riding their bikes on the freeway got off their bikes, laid them over on the ground, and laid on the ground as if they were dead, blocking traffic and stopping commerce and everything else.
So no coverage at all in terms of their body parts?
Some yes, some no.
No, like caveman, you have the string and the little flap, the leaf.
Loincloth.
No, well, for some, yes, but for some it was Adam and Eve pre-sin.
Man, oh man. I wonder if we will see that in Memphis.
I hope not.
Sounds like an OnlyFans video or something.
I hope they made money off of it. If I'm going to ride a bike naked, I best be making something.
I don't think they made any money, unless, they were paid for their protest, which seems to happen sometimes. Banana Ball's coming to the Gulf Coast. Try to remember, we'll tell people about that next week, JT.
Okay, thanks, Richard.
Thanks, pal. JT Mitchell, news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi News Team. That does it for us. 3 hours in the books on this Monday morning, the 13th of October. We're back with you tomorrow just after 6 a.m. For Lance, I'm Richard. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. SuperTalk Mississippi. Have an outstanding day.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.